the darkened valleys of the Carpathian Mountains, the Romanian people have always known a terrible truth. Death is not always final.
They call them Strigoi.
The troubled spirits that rise from the grave, not the elegant creatures of Western fiction, but something far older, something uniquely Romanian, revenants born from improper death, from unfinished business, from souls too restless to rest. The idea of the Strigoi goes back centuries, long before Christianity reached the Carpathians. In ancient Dacian belief, the soul didn't always leave peacefully. Sometimes it hesitated, sometimes it clung, and sometimes it returned with a hunger, not for flesh, but for what it once had. Warmth, life, emotion, presence. Now, the Romanian folklore speaks of two distinct types of Strigoi, each walking different paths of darkness. The living Strigoi and the dead Strigoi. Now, the living Strigoi, who appear entirely human, they were walking among their neighbors in daylight, indistinguishable from ordinary people. But they possessed something supernatural abilities. They can become invisible. They can transform into animals, drain the vitality from crops and livestock through mere proximity. They are born under cursed circumstances. The living Strigoi were believed to possess two souls or two hearts. While their bodies slept, one soul would leave the commune with other Strigoi to siphon the life force from their neighbor's prosperity. They were not blood drinkers, mind you. Their vampirism was psychic, draining vitality and fortune rather than flesh. But far more terrifying.
We're the dead Strigoi.
These were reanimated dead, corpses that refused to remain in their graves. They arose from improper deaths, suicide, murder, dying unbaptized, perishing before marriage, or living lives steeped in sin. The transformation would occur within 40 days of burial. The corpses would stir, its flesh refusing to decay, its body swelling with blood. They had a terrible habit. They returned first to their own families. Now that's what I call dedication when it comes to loving beyond the grave. The Strigoi, according to folklore, didn't act violently. They drain in an entirely different way, emotionally, mentally, slowly wearing a household down with fear, exhaustion, and sleepless nights. Now, around the 20th century, in the village of Amărăști, a peasant named Dinu buried his mother with what he believed were proper rites. For a few peaceful months, the family mourned and the children began passing away. First, the eldest son's children fell ill with a wasting sickness. Their skin grew pale, their eyes sunken. They complained of nightmares, of their grandmother standing at the foot of their beds, watching them with unblinking eyes. Within weeks, all of them joined the unliving. The younger brother's children were next. The same symptoms, the same terrible dreams, the same inevitable death. The brothers consulted priests and elders. They hung garlic at every window. They kept vigil through the night with candles burning. Nothing helped. They finally understood what they were facing. Their mother
Had become a dead Strigoi.
One dark night, tormented by grief and fear, the sons made a terrible decision. They gathered shovels and lanterns, recruited several trusted neighbors, and went to the cemetery. They exhumed their mother's resting place. When they opened the coffin, The men stepped back in horror. The old woman's body showed no signs of decay. Her skin was flushed red, as if blood would still course through her veins. And most disturbing of all, she had shifted position in her coffin, no longer lying as they had placed her. According to old Romanian traditions, there was only one way to stop a dead Strigoi when a body showed these signs. With trembling hands, the sons followed an old ritual meant to bring their mother peace. They prepared her remains exactly as tradition required, separated, so that it will prevent the Strigoi from rising. They returned everything gently into the coffin. They laid her to rest once more, and the deaths stopped immediately. Peace was returned to the family. But the horror of what they had done, of disturbing their mother's grave, would haunt the brothers for the rest of their lives. In December 2003, in a village close to Romania's border with Bulgaria, an old man named Peter passed away in a tragic accident. He had been drinking and driving his horse-drawn carriage through the village when he fell to his death. His family buried him in the local cemetery and began their mourning. But Peter would not rest. Two months later, his niece reporting strange occurrences in her home. Objects moving on their own, terrifying voices echoed through empty rooms. She claimed to see her uncle's spirit visiting her at night. A Strigoi manifestation as poltergeist, hunting not a place, but a person. Shortly after these apparitions began, members of the family started falling ill. The niece's brother-in-law, George, knew what had to be done. He organized a group consisting of several family members. After drinking alcohol to steal their courage, they went to the cemetery in the dead of the night. Now mind you, don't do that. They exhumed Peter's resting place. Following old Romanian traditions meant to quiet a restless spirit, the family carried out a purification ritual. His remains were cleansed through fire, and a small portion was prepared in a ceremonial mixture that Peter's niece was asked to drink. A practice believed to end the haunting and protect her from the Strigoi's reach. Now mind you, this was 2004, not 1904. In Dolge County, police arrested 6 family members who participated in the ritual, charging them with disturbing the peace of the dead. They were sentenced to 6 months imprisonment. Yet the story didn't end there. In the nearby village of Amarești, locals began adopting their own preventive rituals for the newly deceased. They placed fire-treated wood stakes alongside the bodies before burial. They believed this precaution would ensure the departed rested peacefully and would not return as Strigoi. Even in the 21st century, the old beliefs persist. Now, the Romanian people learned to recognize the signs of a Strigoi through centuries of experience. Animals would behave strangely. Dogs would howl or bark at empty streets. Horses would refuse to pass certain graves. To identify a Strigoi's resting place, villagers would lead a black horse or a black goose through the cemetery. If the animal paused at a grave and refused to cross over, that plot harbored a Strigoi. Protection required constant vigilance. Garlic was placed in the coffins and strung across thresholds. Also, crosses were painted on doors. Thorny branches were placed at the entryways. The deceased would be buried face down so that if they tried to dig, they would dig deeper in the earth rather than towards the surface. Hopefully those graves didn't have bells attached to them, The graveyard shift workers would be in for a very unpleasant surprise. For those believed to have already returned, the traditional remedies were strict but highly specific. Villagers relied on rituals involving symbolic wooden stakes, repositioning of the remains, or complete purification through fire with the ashes, often taken to crossroads, ensuring the Strigoi would no longer find their way back. But the most feared night of all was November 30th of St. Andrew's Day, the equivalent of All Hallows Eve. On this night, the Strigoi would gather in battle among themselves to determine who would rule the others for the coming year. Families would barricade themselves inside, burning candles and garlic, praying until dawn. There is often a misunderstanding regarding Strigoi and vampires. Western media often equates Strigoi with vampires, but that is inaccurate. The key differences are the following. The Strigoi is often a visible shadow or a presence. The vampires are always physical. The Strigoi are motivated by longing or attachment. The vampires are motivated by hunger. The Strigoi is more like a ghost rather than a predator. The vampires are predators. The Strigoi is rooted in Dacian beliefs. The vampire is mostly a literary creation. The Strigoi lacks fangs and blood-sucking traits. The vampire is defined by these traits. Lastly, the Strigoi is at times benevolent or confused, while the vampires are usually malevolent. Now, in conclusion, the Strigoi is a folk spirit, not a monster. On cold November nights, when St. Andrew's Day approaches and the wind howls through the Carpathian valleys, the villagers still lock their doors. They still place garlic in their windows or at the entryways. They still whisper prayers into the darkness because they know what the outside world has forgotten. Some dead do not rest, and in the shadows of the Romanian forests, the Strigoi are still waiting. My name is Viktor Corvin, and if the creepy, mysterious, and the macabre speak to you, the Afterveil is the place that you're looking for. Talking about folklore spirits, do consider watching the previous episode, where we get in depth regarding the skinwalkers from the Native American folklore. They're not just shapeshifters, but something else. Something that the mind tries and fails to rationalize. Once you notice its wrongness, it notices you back. Considering that now we're done with the story, do let me know in the comment section what did you like more about this episode. And also let me know what would you like to see in the Afterveil in future episodes. Keep your lanterns lit. Until next time.